National disaster payments to New South Wales businesses are set to be boosted above what was offered to Victorians during its lockdown. The federal government will fund the payments 50-50 with the New South Wales state government. Joining me live now is the ACOSS CEO Casandra Goldie. Casandra, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. What do you hope these figures include?
Well, Peter, I certainly hope the government has heard the message loud and clear that out there people are getting really desperate. We went into these lockdowns with almost a third of people with very, very little behind them already. I mean, this pandemic has taken a toll on a lot of households. They've accumulated debt behind them. Those rent moratoriums, for example, many people accumulated debt. And of course, now in the greater lockdown area, for example, we think we've got about 400,000 people who are locked out of trying to search for paid work. They're on JobSeeker, for example, back down on $44 a day. And so the government needs to deliver on the size and scale of what it did last year. This is the kind of situation we're dealing with. So we're going to welcome, if we see a cash flow boost, that's great. Of course, it's got to be tied to keeping workers on board. We do think there's a place for a targeted JobKeeper. Importantly for us, this disaster recovery payment, which we had called for, it was too low and it excluded too many people, Peter. It didn't include people who were, for example, receiving Social Security, many of whom do have or did have some kind of paid work but have lost it. So if you're a young person, you're now down on about $31 a day. And we're hearing these stories, right? People have lost their part-time work, their casual work. They can't get out and get their hands on paid work. And so they can't keep a roof over their head. They can't cover the basics. And of course, we know that's so crucial to enable people to stay home. That's the big message, isn't it? Stay home. Well, you've got to be able to secure your home, your rent, etc., if you're going to keep everybody safe.
You mentioned landlords in the earlier part of your question there, Casandra, and there has been calls from a few businesses that I've spoken to saying that there should be some kind of relief provided in that space, similar to what was happened a year ago. But then there's that old argument as well, well, landlords need to keep making their money as well. So, I mean, therein lies part of the problem here too.
Well, that's why income support that is at least above the poverty line is so crucial, Peter. We can't allow people to continue to accumulate more debt. That is not a solution to people's mental health in the short term and obviously ongoing in terms of their level of just financial distress. I mean, what's different this year is, of course, a big increase in housing costs. Rents have gone through the roof. As have mortgages. Now, the banks have stepped in, as you know.
Yeah.
We're calling on energy companies to step in again and to waive energy debt for people who really need that, to not disconnect anybody until they've at least spoken to that person and made sure they've done everything they can to keep the lights on. But the federal government's got to do the big bit here. They do need to lift the income support arrangements to protect everybody from falling down below the poverty line. So that's a top-up to the disaster recovery payment. Now, the speculation this morning, the governments could be moving to get that payment up to $600 per week. Now, we would welcome that, but we've got to include people who have been left out, people on the very lowest incomes, like students with casual part-time work and also getting youth allowance, people on JobSeeker who can't get their hands on any paid work now. The government did the right thing last year. It was really important, and this is on the size and scale again. And as I say, some of the conditions for people on low and modest incomes are worse because of those upward pressures on housing and rent prices.
And when should that help end? When caseloads get back to zero?
Well, look, we want this urgently delivered. I think we need to remove any wait list for Social Security and these kinds of top-up payments. When Parliament is recalled, we want a fresh debate about the adequacy of the social safety net, Peter. I mean, we know, JobSeeker and youth allowance, that's the income support floor that protects anybody hit by unemployment. At the moment, it is way too low. It's in deep poverty, and this creates this kind of financial distress for people out there. So that's the longer term solution we need here, as well as a package that is adequate and reliable for when lockdowns happen. So we're making it up again, aren't we? We know these lockdowns are an important part of our COVID response. Whilst we continue to do everything we can to get those vaccination rates up. And so people, households and businesses need to know if a lockdown's coming, this is the package that we can rely on. So we hope that the Prime Minister and the Premier of New South Wales, because that's where it's playing out biggest now, have done all the good work, and then we see a package on the size and scale that we are advocating for today. We can't do too little, and we certainly can't do it too late. If we're going to keep people housed, prevent large-scale homelessness, and that is so important, obviously, for the people affected and also for that big message of staying home and keeping everybody safe.
Okay, Casandra Goldie, thanks for your time as always. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Peter.